Hello, this is Professor JPS. This is lecture number 1 for Mass Communications 101, Section 1, Monday and Wednesday, 10 to 11:20. Okay? Today we're going to be talking about Chapter 4, Advertising, from Joseph Churro's textbook. And I'm going to go through in a streamlined lecture way to try my best to make sure that we're getting the instruction we need for this cancel classes. Today we're going to be talking about advertising. Now, advertising is all around us all of the time. Advertising is the thing that pays for mass media. If you think of mass media as like a brick wall, advertising is the mortar that helps support that particular brick wall. Ever since childhood, you've watched television advertisements. You've seen advertisements as you've grown up on the internet. You've listened to advertisements on the radio. You've seen advertisements in the newspapers and in magazines. Advertising is all around us all of the time, so much so that we barely ever think about the effect advertising could have on us and how it produces what we call a commercial society, a society that really provides for this idea that products are the agents of. And part of my job in this introductory class is to get you to understand about advertising, not only from a sort of basic point of view, but from a critical thinking point of view, to try to think about what effect advertising has on all of us. So in terms of the things that are in the textbook, I will have a handful of pages that you will have to look at in terms of some of the sidebar definitions, okay? But I want you to think about advertising and just its pervasiveness. It's all at the same time all around us 24/7 before we actually start getting into some actual definitions. It's estimated that, children, by the time they're 10 or 15 years old, they receive millions of advertisements every year. And that has to have some effect on how we understand the world and how we understand our society. I want you to make sure that you're paying attention to Chapter 4, even the basic definition of advertising, which in the textbook is on page 91. That's page 91. For airtime or space to sell products. A commercial, that's what it is. Companies pay for airtime and they pay for space in a newspaper, in a magazine, or pay for airtime in a radio station, pay for space and parts of the internet. That's what advertising is, okay? It's a very, very, very basic thing that we should understand, but it's financial. Advertisers pay for ad space and airtime. For every 22 minutes of programming, there's 8 minutes. For every 30 minutes of programming, there's 8 minutes of commercials and 20 minutes of programming on television. That's a lot of advertising, okay? And that's on page 91, and we'll get to definitions again in a few minutes. On page 92 of your textbook is something called an ad agency. Now, you may or may not know what an ad agency is, but you have to understand ad agencies are separate from companies that make products themselves. An ad agency is a company that's responsible for the creative output of advertising. So for instance, we all know what McDonald's is, right? It's fast food, it's relatively cheap, and we're all aware of it ever since we were little children, okay? But there's still advertisements for McDonald's. Now, McDonald's doesn't make its own ads. They make the food, and they have the McDonald's franchises all over the world. Hire an advertising agency that have a creative way to try to get people to be reminded that you can get cheap, they may have a special Happy Meal or a special new sandwich coming along, but that is hired out to a separate company. An ad agency does not make the product. An ad agency actually produces the creative output to sell the product. If you like, they're not selling the steak, they're selling the sizzle. They're trying to make products appeal to you. That's what an ad agency is about. And that information is also on page 92. Okay? Let me just take a sip of coffee here. Another aspect that's in the textbook on page 94 is internet agencies. Internet agencies. Internet ad agencies are what they say they are. It's an agency, an advertising agency, that deals with all internet advertising. Okay? Now, this has become very, very prominent in the past half decade or so because most people are really utilizing the internet with much more greater rapidity than they did in the past. So the new and interesting ad campaigns are on the internet, on Facebook, on all streams and platforms of the internet. So ad agencies is the present and the future in terms of advertising. Not that television isn't still important. Still, people watch a lot of television all the time. But there's ad agencies and there's internet ad agencies. And there's just agencies that are responsible for the creative output of advertising. And that's on page 98. Okay? And page 94. Page 94. Page 98 is another aspect of advertising called branding. I think you understand what branding is. Branding is making your ideas stand out in the marketplace. Making your product stand out in the marketplace. We're all susceptible to brand envy and brand lust. We're interested in the best brands so we can feel like we're getting the best bargain or the best clothes or the best cars or the best iPhone or whatever. Branding is very, very important component to contemporary advertising. And the branding information is on page 98 of your textbook on the sidebar definitions. Okay. Now, I think I'm going to end part 1 right now because it's my understanding that these things take a long time to upload with advertising. Okay. So, thank you.